The mansion was dressed for Christmas, but the silence inside it felt borrowed, as if it did not truly belong there. Gold lights wound around the banisters like careful secrets. Pine garlands draped the marble columns, their scent sharp and clean, unable to erase the colder smell of power that lived in the walls. Somewhere deep in the house, a grand piano played softly, one of the boss's men pressing keys without joy, only obedience. She moved through it all without sound. Her name was barely spoken here. She was known by function, not identity, the maid, the girl, the one who cleaned, served, listened, and disappeared. She had learned early that invisibility was survival. Eyes down, steps light, no reactions, no questions. In this house, attention could be dangerous. She carried a tray of crystal glasses down the long hallway, her fingers steady even as her stomach rolled with quiet nausea. She told herself it was the heat from the kitchen, or nerves, or hunger, anything but the truth she had been pushing away for days. The Mafia boss's mansion was alive tonight. Men in tailored suits arrived in waves, boots polished, weapons hidden beneath silk and wool. Laughter echoed too loudly, forced and sharp, the kind that never quite reached the eyes. Deals were being discussed. Territory, loyalty, bloodless words that carried heavy consequences. She passed beneath a chandelier the size of a small car and caught her reflection in the glass of a framed oil painting. Pale face, calm expression, dark hair pinned back too tightly. She looked composed, almost empty. No one here would guess how loud her thoughts were, how crowded her chest felt. She had been here for nearly a year, long enough to learn the rhythms of the house, long enough to know when to stay out of sight, long enough to fall into something she had never intended. The boss was in the study tonight. He had been in a mood all day, controlled, cold, focused, the kind of focus that meant someone else would pay for it later. She paused outside the door, just long enough to adjust her grip on the tray. The voices inside were low but clear. She had learned where sound traveled in this house. Walls were thin when power wanted them to be. "You're going to the wedding," one man said, amused. "People will talk." "I don't care what they say," the boss replied. His voice was smooth, confident, dangerous in its calm. "It's necessary, appearances matter." "And her?" another voice asked. "The girl." Her breath caught before she could stop it. "She comes," he said without hesitation. "She's useful, knows how to behave, doesn't ask questions." "Useful." The word settled into her chest like ice. "Careful," someone laughed. "You keep her around too long, people start thinking she matters." A pause, then a soft scoff. "She's staff," he said. "Nothing more, easily replaced if she forgets that." The tray trembled slightly in her hands. She tightened her grip until the crystal chimed faintly. No one noticed. No one ever did. Easily replaced. She had known it, of course. She had always known. Still, hearing it spoken so casually felt like something tearing loose inside her. Like a truth she had been pretending not to see had finally stepped into the light. She moved away from the door before they could open it, heart pounding too loudly, afraid it would give her away. Her body felt strange, distant, heavy and hollow at the same time. The Christmas tree in the main hall glittered as she passed it. Red ribbons, gold ornaments, wrapped gifts stacked beneath it, each tagged with a name that was not hers. Warm light reflected off polished floors. It should have felt festive. Instead, it felt cruel. Her stomach turned again, sharper this time. She pressed her hand briefly against her lower abdomen, a small, unconscious gesture she quickly corrected. Fear surged up her spine. Not now, not here. She told herself she was imagining things. Stress could do that. Long hours, too much silence. She refused to let her mind finish the thought that had been circling her for days, thinking it made it real, and reality in this house was never kind. She set the tray down in the dining room and stepped back into the shadows, as she always did. From there, she watched men drink and laugh, watched the boss move among them like a king among loyal subjects. He looked powerful, untouchable, exactly as the world expected him to be. He did not look at her. The Christmas lights blinked softly, indifferent. Something terrible had already been said, And something worse, she sensed, was still coming. She felt it settle deep in her bones, heavy and unavoidable. Tonight was not just another night. Tonight was the moment everything would change, whether she was ready or not. The house felt different after that night. Not louder, not quieter, just heavier. Like every wall now carried weight she could not escape. She woke before dawn with nausea curling sharp in her stomach. She knelt beside the sink, breathing slowly, until the feeling passed. When she stood, her legs trembled, and she blamed the cold marble floor. Anything was easier than facing the truth that pressed against her thoughts. By afternoon, the mansion filled again. Men arrived with coats dusted in snow and voices full of confidence. They moved like predators, relaxed, because they knew the territory was theirs. She moved among them like air, invisible by design. She served drinks in the main hall, where the Christmas tree stood tall and perfect. Gold lights reflected off glasses and polished shoes. Laughter rose and fell. Power sat comfortably in every corner. The boss stood near the fireplace, tall, controlled, untouchable. He did not look at her as she passed. That hurt more than anger would have. She carried a tray past the study and slowed when voices drifted out again. She did not mean to listen. She never meant to listen. But listening had always been safer than being seen. One of the men laughed low and sharp. "You are really bringing her to the wedding." The boss did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was calm, almost bored. "She serves a purpose." Her chest tightened. "A purpose?" Another man spoke. "People notice things. A maid at a wedding like that. It sends a message." The boss chuckled. "Exactly. She reminds them I am untouchable. That even my staff knows their place." Her fingers dug into the edge of the tray. The room seemed to tilt. "Staff. Place." The words stacked on top of each other, crushing everything beneath them. Someone else added. "And when she stops being useful." There was a pause, just long enough for hope to foolishly rise in her chest. Then his answer came clean and sharp. "Then she is replaced." No hesitation. No emotion. Just certainty. Her vision blurred. She stepped back before her breath could give her away. Her heart beat hard enough she feared it would echo down the hallway. She walked past the tree again. Past the gifts. Past the warmth that belonged to everyone but her. In the laundry room, she set the tray down and pressed her back to the wall. Her hands shook now. No reason to hide it here. She had told herself she knew the rules. No names. No promises. No future. But some small part of her had believed she was different. That the quiet moments meant something. That the way he looked at her, when no one else was around, was real. Now she understood. She was not chosen. She was convenient. Her stomach twisted again. Stronger this time. She bent forward, breathing through it. Fear flooded her veins. Not now. Please, not now. She counted slowly. One breath, then another. The sensation faded, but the dread stayed. She thought of the test hidden in her bag. The one she had not thrown away. The one she had not looked at again. Denial was easier than truth. Denial kept her safe. Or so she had told herself. But standing there listening to the man who owned this house reduce her to nothing. She felt something inside her shift. A line crossed. A door closing. Later that night, as the mansion quieted, she stood alone in her small room beneath the stairs. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. At the woman who had learned to disappear so well. She placed a hand over her stomach. This time she did not pull it away. If she stayed, she would lose herself. If she stayed, she would raise a child in the shadows of a man who saw people as tools. Fear still whispered. But beneath it, something stronger began to form. Resolve. She did not know how. She did not know when. But she knew one thing with absolute clarity. She would not be replaced. She would leave first. The morning light crept into her small room beneath the stairs. Thin and gray and unforgiving. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the words came back. Useful. Replaced. She sat on the edge of the narrow bed and waited for the nausea to pass. It came in slow waves now. No longer sharp. Almost familiar. That scared her more than the pain. She opened her bag with shaking hands. The test was still there, wrapped in a folded receipt, like it might disappear if hidden well enough. Her fingers hovered over it. She did not want to look. Looking meant admitting. Admitting meant everything would change. But everything had already changed. She stared at the wall and thought about the first time he had spoken her name. How her heart had jumped. How she had felt seen. How foolish that felt now. She pressed the test into her palm. Then she closed her eyes and forced herself to remember the doctor visit from days ago. The quiet office. The calm voice. The confirmation she had nodded through without really hearing. 8 weeks. The truth settled heavy and undeniable. Her hand moved to her stomach again. This time she let it stay. There was nothing there, yet that anyone could see. But she felt it. A presence. A pull. A responsibility she had never asked for, but could not ignore. Fear crept in fast and sharp. Fear of him. Fear of this house. Fear of what would happen if he found out. A child in a Mafia mansion was not a miracle. It was leverage. It was weakness. It was danger. She knew that instinctively. She rose and dressed slowly. Her movements careful. Measured. Like she was already planning an escape, even if she did not yet know how. Downstairs the house stirred. Voices. Footsteps. The low hum of power waking up. She moved through her duties as usual. Silent. Efficient. Invisible. But inside her mind raced. If she told him, he would decide her future for her. He would decide where she lived. Who she was. What the child would become. If she stayed quiet, she could still choose. She overheard another conversation later that day. Not meant for her ears. Never meant for her. One of the men asked casually what would happen if someone betrayed the house. The answer came without hesitation. No mercy. Her heart pounded. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because leaving would be seen as betrayal. The realization nearly stopped her breath. Leaving meant risk. Staying meant losing herself completely. By evening, the mansion glowed again with holiday light. Music drifted through the halls. Laughter returned. None of it reached her. She stood alone near the back entrance, where the cold slipped through the cracks. Snowflakes swirled outside. Free. Unclaimed. She imagined walking into that snow. No name. No past. Just movement. Her hand rested on her stomach once more. A promise forming without words. She would not raise her child in fear. She would not teach silence as survival. Denial cracked then. Fully and finally. She was pregnant. She was alone. And she was leaving. Not tomorrow. Not after the wedding. Not after Christmas. Soon. Before something worse was said. Before something irreversible was done. As the house filled with celebration behind her, she stood in the shadows and understood with terrifying clarity. This place was not her home. This man was not her future. And if she waited any longer, she might lose the courage to go. Tonight had planted the seed. Soon she would run. And when she did, she would not look back. Christmas Eve arrived without mercy. The mansion breathed celebration from every corner. Warm light spilled across marble floors. Music drifted through halls thick with laughter and false comfort. She moved through it like a ghost. Her body felt heavier today. Every step carried a quiet ache. Her stomach tightened often now, and she stopped pretending it was nothing. Fear wrapped itself around her ribs and stayed there. She had made her decision. It sat inside her with terrifying clarity. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just absolute. Tonight. She folded linens in the West Wing, while voices echoed from the main hall. Men toasted. Glasses clinked. Promises were made that would ruin lives by morning. She kept her head down. Her hands worked automatically. Years of training guiding her movements even now. Even when she was about to disappear. A guard passed her in the hallway and nodded without really seeing her. That should have scared her. Instead, it steadied her. Invisibility was her shield. When the clock struck late evening, the mansion grew louder. Dinner was served. The boss held court near the fireplace. His presence pulled energy toward him like gravity. She did not look at him. She could not. If she did, she might remember the quiet moments. The almost kindness. The illusion. She slipped away toward the service corridor. The place where staff faded between rooms. Her small room waited beneath the stairs. Inside it she packed slowly. Methodically. Only what she could carry. Clothes. Cash hidden in an envelope. The test she still had not thrown away. She paused with it in her hand. Her throat tightened. Her chest burned. One tear fell. Then another. She did not wipe them away. She pressed the test back into her bag and zipped it closed. Final. Like a door locking behind her. Outside her window, snow began to fall. Soft and steady. Covering the world in white. She pulled on her coat. The same one she had arrived with months ago. Too thin. Too worn. But hers. Before leaving, she stood still. Listened. The mansion hummed behind her. Alive without her. Unchanged. That hurt more than she expected. She walked down the service stairs. Each step echoing too loudly in her ears. At the back door she hesitated. Her hand resting on the handle. Her other hand moved instinctively to her stomach. A silent apology. A silent promise. I will keep you safe. She opened the door and stepped into the cold. Snow clung to her hair and lashes. The air burned her lungs. She welcomed it. Behind her, Christmas lights glowed through tall windows. Inside, laughter swelled. She did not belong to that warmth anymore. She walked fast down the drive. Past the gate. Past the guards who barely glanced her way. No one stopped her. Tears streamed freely now. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just constant. Crying on Christmas Eve. Leaving everything she knew. Carrying a future no one else could see. At the end of the street, she stopped and looked back once. The mansion loomed against the dark sky. Imposing. Beautiful. Empty. She wondered if he would notice. If he would care. If her absence would register at all. The thought hurt. So she let it go. She turned away and kept walking. Snow erased her footprints almost instantly. Like she had never been there. With every step, her fear followed her. But something else walked beside it. Relief. Tonight she was no longer owned. No longer useful. No longer replaceable. Tonight she chose herself. And as the mansion disappeared behind the falling snow, she knew with aching certainty. There was no going back. Whatever waited ahead would be hard. Lonely. Unforgiving. But it would be hers. And nothing. Not power. Not fear. Not love spoken too late. Would ever pull her back again. The wedding took place under chandeliers heavier than guilt. An old cathedral restored with money no one asked about. White flowers lined the aisle. Music swelled soft and expensive. The Mafia boss arrived exactly on time. He wore black. Always black. Power wrapped neatly in tailored fabric. Men parted instinctively to make room for him. Whispers followed. Respect. Fear. curiosity. His ex-fiancée stood at the altar glowing. Perfect. Chosen. Safe in a future, built from alliances and appearances. He watched without emotion. Or at least that was what he told himself. But something felt wrong. She should have been here. The thought came uninvited, sharp and sudden. The maid who always stood, just behind his shoulder. The quiet presence who knew how he took his coffee. Who never spoke unless spoken to. Who disappeared when asked. She should have been standing near the wall. Head bowed. Invisible. Instead, there was empty space. He dismissed the thought and focused forward. This wedding mattered. It sealed peace. It quieted rivals. It proved strength. Still his eyes drifted back again and again. Searching without intention. Finding nothing. As vows were spoken, a child cried, somewhere in the pews. A sharp sound that cut through the ceremony. Something in his chest tightened unexpectedly. He shifted his jaw. Annoyed. Unsettled. Later at the reception, champagne flowed freely. Laughter filled the hall. Deals were whispered between courses. One man leaned close. You never replaced her. He frowned slightly. Replaced who? The maid. The quiet one. The question irritated him more than it should have. Staff came and went. Always had. She left. That was all. But the man continued. Strange thing, though. She vanished completely. No calls. No favors. No rumors. The boss took a slow drink. Eyes darkening. Vanished. The word lingered. Another guest laughed nearby, talking about family. Children. Legacies. He tuned it out. Then another voice mentioned Christmas Eve. Someone joking about how people disappear when the year ends. The room felt suddenly too warm. Later that night, he stood alone near a window, watching snow fall outside the city. The same snow that had fallen on Christmas Eve. He replayed that night without meaning to. Her silence. Her absence. The way she had not appeared the next morning. No explanation. No farewell. Just gone. He had assumed fear. Or gratitude. Or weakness. Now doubt crept in. Across the country, she sat alone in a small room. Rain tapping against glass. Her hands resting on a curve that was no longer easy to hide. She counted her money again. Not enough. Never enough. She worked mornings now. Cleaning tables in a place where no one knew her name. Where danger did not sit at every corner. Her body felt different every day. Heavier. Stronger. More demanding. She spoke softly sometimes when no one was around. Not words. Just sounds. A promise that she was still here. Back at the wedding, the boss finally felt it. The first true crack in his certainty. She had not left because she was weak. She had left because she was done. The realization unsettled him more than betrayal ever could. When the bride and groom danced. When applause filled the room. When everyone celebrated beginnings. He stood perfectly still. Somewhere far away, a woman he had never truly seen was building a life without him. And for the first time since power had been placed in his hands, he wondered, what had she taken with her when she walked away? And why did the loss feel heavier now than any territory ever surrendered? The city she fled to did not welcome her gently. Rain fell often, and streets smelled of wet concrete and coffee. The sky stayed low and gray like it was watching her. She liked that. No one here expected her to smile. She rented a room above a laundromat. The machines shook the floor at night and lulled her into restless sleep. It was small, but it was quiet. No guards. No whispered threats. No footsteps outside her door. She worked wherever she could. Cleaning tables in the morning. Folding laundry for strangers in the afternoon. Scrubbing floors at night when her back ached and her hands burned. Each job paid little. Each job paid freedom. Her body changed fast now. Her stomach curved forward, undeniable. Her breath shortened when she climbed stairs. Her feet swelled by evening. She stopped pretending this was temporary. Stopped pretending she would go back. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Her face softer. Her eyes sharper. Fear had not left her. It had transformed. She spoke to her belly when she thought no one could hear. Soft words. Apologies. Promises. I will not fail you. Sometimes she dreamed of the mansion. The chandeliers. The silence. The man who never looked at her when others were present. She woke from those dreams soaked in sweat. Heart racing. Certain someone would be standing over her. No one ever was. That was the strangest part. Being unowned. At the free clinic, a nurse smiled at her. Asked her name. Asked how she was feeling. Actually waited for an answer. The kindness nearly broke her. She learned how to count weeks. How to breathe through pain. How to eat when nausea clawed at her throat. She learned how to be alone without disappearing. Back in New York, the boss sat in rooms full of men. Listening to reports. Approving decisions. Signing orders that ruined lives. He felt nothing during it. That scared him. Power had always steadied him. Now it rang hollow. He noticed the absence more with each passing day. The way no one anticipated his needs. The way silence followed him instead of calm. He snapped at his men. Not because of mistakes, but because they were not her. He began asking questions he should not have cared about. Where had she gone? Why had she left without fear? Why had no one heard from her? His people found nothing. No accounts. No calls. No trail. She had erased herself. In her small room, she built something new. Not wealth. Not power. Routine. She woke before sunrise. Worked until her body begged her to stop. Ate simple food. Read borrowed books. Wrote lists she never finished. She named the feeling growing inside her resolve. No one here knew her past. No one here lowered their voice when she entered a room. No one here expected obedience. For the first time she was seen. Not as useful. Not as silent. Just as a woman trying to survive. One evening, she stood at the window watching rain blur the streetlights. Her hand rested on her stomach, heavy and warm. She understood then that rebirth did not arrive softly. It hurt. It stripped. It demanded everything. But it gave something back. Choice. Far away, a man with blood on his hands and power in his name stared at the same gray sky. Feeling something unfamiliar crack open in his chest. He had lost more than control. He had lost the only person who had ever left him without asking permission. And she, in her quiet room above the laundromat, smiled through the ache. Because she had not escaped to be saved. She had escaped to become someone he could never own again. The realization did not come all at once. It arrived in pieces, sharp and unforgiving. It began with silence. Too much of it. The maid had been gone for months now. Long enough that her absence could no longer be explained away as fear or convenience. No one disappeared like that unless they wanted to. He sat in his private office late at night. Lights dimmed. City humming below like a distant warning. Reports lay untouched on his desk. He replayed Christmas Eve again. Her quiet movements. The way she had not looked at him. The way she had vanished without a word. He had assumed weakness. He understood now how wrong that had been. He ordered searches quietly at first. Nothing official. Nothing loud. Just questions asked in the right places. No trail. No bank activity. No favors called in. No whispers. That unsettled him. Everyone left something behind. Money. Anger. Fear. She had left nothing. One of his men returned days later. Face tight. Voice careful. She visited a doctor shortly before she disappeared. The room seemed to tilt. What kind of visit? The man hesitated. Then spoke. Not an injury. Not illness. Prenatal. The word echoed through his body like a gunshot. Prenatal. Time slowed. Every sound dull and distant. He stood so suddenly, the chair scraped hard against the floor. His hand braced against the desk. Dates ran through his mind, uninvited. Christmas Eve. Weeks before. The quiet nausea he had ignored. The way she sometimes pressed her hand to her stomach. He had noticed. He had chosen not to understand. Another report followed. Shelters in other states. A sighting at a clinic. A waitress matching her description. Pregnant. The word cut deeper each time. She had not just left him. She had fled while carrying his child. Something broke then. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It cracked inside his chest, where certainty used to live. Power had never frightened him. Violence had never shaken him. But this undone him. He had called her replaceable. Useful. Staff. While she had been carrying a life, he would have claimed as legacy. He sat down slowly. For the first time in years, his hands shook. He thought of the mansion. The danger. The blood tied to his name. She had known. She had protected the child by leaving. That truth burned. Orders went out immediately. Not threats. Not force. Find her. Carefully. Days stretched. Then weeks. Finally a name surfaced. A city far from his reach. A building above a laundromat. When the address was placed in front of him, he stared at it longer than any contract he had ever signed. This was where she chose to survive. He traveled alone. No entourage. No armor. The streets smelled of rain and detergent. Nothing like the world he ruled. The building was narrow. Worn. Alive. He climbed the stairs slowly. Each step heavier than the last. At the door he hesitated. The man who ordered executions, now afraid of a woman, opening a door. He knocked. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. The door opened. She stood there changed and unmistakable. Hair pulled back loosely. Eyes sharper. Body curved with undeniable truth. Her hand moved to her stomach instinctively. Protective. The air between them went still. He did not need to ask. The timeline. The fear. The escape. All of it made sense now. It is mine. The words left him raw. Not a question. Her jaw tightened. Yes. The answer carried no softness. Only strength. Something inside him collapsed completely. He had not lost control that night. He had lost everything that mattered. And standing there in a hallway that smelled of soap and rain, facing the woman he had reduced to nothing, he understood the final truth. She had not destroyed him by leaving. She had saved their child by doing it. And if she shut the door now, he would deserve it. The hallway felt too small for both of them. Air pressed heavy against her chest. The sound of the laundromat below thumped like a warning. She did not step aside. She did not invite him in. He stood there, larger than the space should allow. Power stripped from him by a single truth. His eyes fixed on her stomach, as if looking might hurt. You should not be here. Her voice was steady. Stronger than she felt. I know. He did not move. Did not reach. Did not cross the invisible line between them. I will leave if you tell me to. The words sounded strange coming from him. A man who never asked permission. She let out a breath she did not know she was holding. You tracked me. You watched me. You followed me here. I had to find you. That is not an excuse. Silence filled the space again, thick and sharp. She felt the child move, a slow roll beneath her ribs. Her hand went to her stomach without thought. His breath caught. She is afraid. She stiffened. Do not say her like you know her. He swallowed. Pain crossed his face. I want to. That frightened her more than anger. You do not get to want things from me anymore. I know. Another pause. Longer this time. He spoke carefully. Like every word could explode. I did not come to take anything. I came to take responsibility. She laughed once. Dry and bitter. You do not get to decide that now. He nodded. You are right. The laundromat door slammed below. Machines rattled. Life continued. She leaned against the doorframe. Her body tired. Her heart louder than the city. Say what you came to say. Then you leave. He looked at her. Really looked. Not like staff. Not like convenience. Like a woman who had survived him. I was cruel. I said things that should never be said. I used power to feel bigger. And I crushed you because it was easy. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes burned. I thought silence meant safety. That keeping you hidden protected you. But it only protected me. He stepped back half a pace, giving her space. You left to save the child. I see that now. She did not answer. Her breathing shallow. I will not touch you. I will not demand anything. I will not force my way into your life. Then why are you here? Because if I do nothing, I become the man you escaped. And I cannot live with that. The words landed heavy. I will chain. She shook her head. Words are cheap. I know. He reached into his coat slowly. Not a threat. Not a weapon. Papers. News articles. Transfers. I stepped away from operations. Pulled men off the streets. Cut ties that cannot be repaired. She stared. Uncertain. I moved here. Not close to you. Close enough to be useful if you allow it. Her heart pounded. You think this fixes anything? No. I think this begins something. If you want it. She closed her eyes. Tears slipped free. You do not get forgiveness. You do not get trust. He nodded again. I know. When she opened her eyes, she saw something she had never seen in him. Fear. I will sit outside. I will leave tomorrow. I will do whatever you ask. Her voice trembled. I am not weak anymore. I see that. The child moved again. Strong. Insistent. She rested her hand there. Then looked at him. You will not own her. You will not shape her with violence. You will not disappear when it is hard. I swear. Her silence stretched. Testing him. You get one chance. Hope flickered across his face. One chance to prove I am not the man you ran from. She stepped back. Not far. Just enough. 5 minutes. He exhaled. Thank you. As he stepped inside the small room, power remained outside the door. And for the first time, she did not feel hunted. She felt in control. Change did not arrive loudly. It arrived in repetition. He showed up. Again. And again. Not with men. Not with money. Not with demands. He arrived alone. She watched him carefully. Every instinct trained by fear and memory. Every movement measured. He sat when told. Stood when asked. Left when she said time was up. He did not touch her without permission. Did not speak about the past unless she asked. Did not raise his voice, even when tension filled the room. That restraint unsettled her more than arrogance ever had. She tested him without meaning to. Small rules. Sharp boundaries. Do not come unannounced. Do not speak to me like you own space here. Do not bring your world into mine. He agreed to everything. No hesitation. The man who once ruled through fear now waited. Listened. Learned. He drove her to appointments and sat quietly with hands folded. Asked questions about vitamins and due dates. Learned how to breathe when pain came. How to hold silence without filling it. She noticed the changes slowly. The way his phone stayed dark. The way he flinched when violence came up in conversation. The way he spoke of leaving operations behind not with pride, but with shame. At night, she lay awake wondering if this was real. Or if it was another illusion. Trust had taught her to hurt. Some days she snapped at him. Accused him of pretending. Of waiting for the right moment to take control again. He accepted every word. Did not argue. Did not defend. I deserve your anger. That answer disarmed her more than any apology. The child grew stronger. Kicks firm and demanding. A reminder that time moved forward whether fear allowed it or not. He built furniture with his own hands. Awkward. Careful. Sweat on his collar. No shortcuts. He brought groceries. Cooked badly. Laughed when she corrected him. That laughter startled her. Soft. Unforced. One afternoon, she asked the question she had been holding. Why did you really chain? He did not answer right away. Because power failed me. Because I thought control meant strength. Because I broke the only person who ever left me without fear. His voice lowered. And because if my child grows up knowing, I chose violence over her. I will never forgive myself. That night she cried alone. Not from pain. From exhaustion. Hope was heavier than fear. Friends noticed. A woman from the clinic. A neighbor. They watched him with suspicion. She watched him more closely. Then one evening he did not come. No call. No message. Panic rose fast. Sharp. Familiar. Her hands shook. Her chest tightened. This is how it starts. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, there was a knock. He stood there breathless. Apologetic. There was a situation. I shut it down. I wanted to be here first. He looked shaken. She believed him. That terrified her. The night labor began, he did not hesitate. No fear. No confusion. He held her through pain. Through screaming. Through hours that stripped them both bare. When the child cried for the first time, something inside her broke open. Life. Raw and undeniable. He wept. Not quietly. Not controlled. She watched him collapse into the moment. Powerless and present. She named the child. A name that meant light. A name that meant survival. He did not argue. Did not claim ownership. Weeks passed. Then months. He stayed. Not because he was needed, but because he chose to be. Still she did not promise forever. Still she guarded her heart. But one morning, as she watched him rock their child to sleep, she felt it. Not forgiveness. Trust beginning. And that was more dangerous than hate ever had been. Because if he failed now, it would hurt more than the first time. Still she stayed. Because redemption was not something he declared. It was something he earned. One quiet day at a time. The morning light entered softly. Not like before. Not sharp or demanding. It touched the room gently, as if asking permission. She watched the child sleep. Small chest rising and falling. A rhythm steadier than any promise. Her world had narrowed. Not in fear, but in focus. Everything now lived in this room. Breath. Warmth. Presence. He stood near the window, holding a cup he had forgotten to drink. No phone. No men waiting outside. No power pressing in. Just a man learning how to exist without armor. She remembered the mansion, the chandeliers, the silence that suffocated, the girl who had learned to disappear. That girl felt distant now. Not gone, but transformed. He turned toward her slowly, like he was afraid sudden movement might break something fragile. You were right. She did not ask about what. You said love was not enough. You said words meant nothing without chain. He swallowed. I ended it. Her breath caught. All of it. The streets. The orders. The leverage. The world that taught me people were tools. He took a step closer and stopped when she did not move. I handed it over. Walked away. Let it burn. She searched his face, looking for arrogance, for regret, for performance. She found fear and relief. Why? Because when I held her for the first time, I knew if I stayed, she would inherit blood, not choice. Silence stretched. Heavy. Honest. Outside the city moved. Unaware. Unimpressed. She thought of the night she left. The snow. The cold. The certainty that she would never return. And she realized she had not. The woman who stood here now was not the maid. Not the shadow. Not the secret. She had rebuilt herself piece by piece. Without asking permission. You do not get to be the hero of this story. He nodded immediately. I know. You did not save me. He lowered his gaze. You saved yourself. And you saved her. That was the difference. She felt something settle in her chest. Not relief. Not forgiveness. Peace. They did not rush. They did not pretend the past had not happened. Trust was not declared. It was practiced. Days turned into months. Months into years. They argued. They paused. They listened. She opened a small place. A quiet space filled with warmth and real laughter. She hired women who needed a second chance. Not because she was kind, but because she remembered. He worked with his hands, taught their child how to plant seeds, how to fix broken things, how to walk away from anger. The world learned slowly. Then all at once, the Mafia boss disappeared. Not killed, not imprisoned. He chose to end himself as that man. People whispered, speculated, feared. She did not care. On a winter evening years later, snow fell again, soft and steady. They sat together, watching their child play on the floor. Strong, unafraid, free. Do you regret it, he asked. She thought of Christmas Eve. The crying, the leaving, the terror. She smiled. Walking away taught me my worth. Letting you walk back and taught me my strength. He reached for her hand. Not claiming. Not demanding. Thank you for choosing yourself. She squeezed his fingers. I never stopped. Outside the snow erased the city. Inside a family existed. Not because power demanded it, but because choice built it. And for the first time, nothing felt borrowed. Everything felt earned.